At dinner, my wife didn't flinch. She set her fork down, looked me straight in the eye, and said, "I'm in love with someone you know." I didn't ask who. I didn't need to. I just smiled, the kind of smile that hides a fire. And then I whispered, "Good to know." She thought I'd fall apart. She didn't know I'd already let go of her months ago, the moment her laughter started sounding like a stranger's. That night, while she drank wine in the kitchen, humming almost proud, I moved like a ghost. I pulled my $90,000 out of her startup without a trace, canceled the house we were about to buy, and walked out in silence. No goodbye, no closure, just a man reclaiming his dignity. 2 days later, her new man, a man I once coached through his first job, a man who called me sir, was on the phone, desperate, begging for help. But by then, the part of me that gave was long gone. My name is Everett Kane. And from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Have you ever been so steady that no one noticed when you disappeared? 2 days, without a word. That's all it took for the panic to set in. She called me twice, no voicemail. Then 10 times, blocked. Her texts went from bold to broken. "Where are you? We need to talk. Please, Everett." But I wasn't hers to find anymore. You see, my wife believed I was predictable, stable, safe. She never imagined I'd disappear with the same hands that once built her life. While she wandered the condo in confusion, I sat in a quiet cabin 3 hours north, fire crackling, paperwork open, transferring ownership of every joint account into trusts with only my name. I'd spent years managing her digital life. Her passwords were mine before she ever whispered them. She gave me the keys and forgot I held the locks. And the man she left me for? Brady Monroe, 32, used to be my intern. I gave him his first $5,000 when his car broke down. I gave him a job when no one else would. And he gave my wife a secret. But now, his startup account was frozen. The funds they planned to run with vanished. The project pitch I'd written for them, copyrighted under my name. I'd warned Brady once, years ago, don't ever mistake kindness for blindness. He forgot. That night, I poured myself a glass of bourbon and watched the snow fall. And I smiled for the first time, not because I'd hurt them, but because I'd finally chosen me. Brady's third voicemail came with a tremble. "Please, Everett. I don't know what happened. Investors are pulling out. She said you'd help." She said I'd help? Funny how she remembered me. Only when things started falling apart. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Because by then, word had already spread. The startup they launched? Frozen in motion. The pitch deck? Taken down from every angel investor board it appeared on. All it took was one quiet call from me to a friend at the accelerator program. No shouting. No accusations. Just facts. There's a conflict in intellectual ownership, and I won't be backing it. That was all I said. The rest? Their empire began to eat itself from the inside out. They tried to pivot fast, rebranded the website, changed the tagline, removed my name from the thank you section. But the internet never forgets, and neither do journalists looking for a scandal. An article hit the business blog circuit. Silent partner withdraws. Trouble at rising tech couples venture. The picture under the headline? My wife and Brady holding hands at a launch party I paid for. $14,000 worth of wine and lighting. And not a single thank you. And now, their faces were everywhere. But not for the reasons they hoped. Their silence became suspicious. Their confidence turned defensive. And my absence became the loudest voice in the room. In the end, I didn't need revenge. I just needed to stop protecting them. And the moment I did, the world saw what I'd been hiding all along. It was a Thursday afternoon when I heard it. 3 soft knocks on the door of the cabin. Not the mailman. Not a neighbor. I already knew. I opened it slowly. There she was. No makeup, no heels. Just a broken version of the woman who once whispered betrayal across candlelight. She looked past me, like maybe my forgiveness was somewhere behind the door. "Everett," she breathed, "can we talk?" I didn't move. I just looked at her the way she used to look through me. You disappeared, she said. You blindsided me. I almost laughed. She didn't know what blindsiding felt like. I stepped outside, shut the door behind me, leaned against the porch railing. I gave you everything, she said. My trust. My time. That's when I looked her in the eye. And for the first time in years, I told the truth. You gave me company. I gave you a kingdom. She blinked. I continued. I wrote your business plan. I funded your launch. I backed your future, while you planned mine without me. And then, the silence. Not guilt. Not apology. Just desperation. We can fix this, she whispered. We can still sell, rebrand, shift equity. But I wasn't there to fix. I was there to finish. I'm not angry, I said. I'm just done being small in my own story. She reached for my arm. I stepped back. You left long before I did, I said. I just finally followed your lead. She stood there, speechless, realizing too late that the man she betrayed wasn't broken. He was just beginning. And as she walked back to her car, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt free. Brady showed up 2 days later, unannounced, out of place, wearing a coat too expensive for someone who claimed to be burning through savings. He parked his electric coupe on the dirt road like it belonged there. When he stepped onto the porch, he didn't knock. He just stood, waiting for me to acknowledge him. I didn't. He finally said, "Everett, can we talk man to man?" I stood up slowly, took my time walking to the edge of the porch. He was fidgeting. He never did that when he was under me. I made mistakes, he said. I admit that. Mistakes? You stole the woman I built a life with, I said. You pitched my ideas in boardrooms I was supposed to walk into. And now that the engine's smoking, you're knocking on the hood, asking me to fix it. He looked down. I was just trying to build something of my own, he mumbled. That's when I said it. The line Hill, remember long after the money runs out. You built nothing. You borrowed my blueprint and painted over my name. He tried to offer equity. He tried to offer credit. He even offered a public apology. But I wasn't here for scraps. I told him one last thing. A man becomes powerful the moment he learns to walk away, without setting anything on fire. He looked at me, confused. Because to him, revenge was noise. But I'd shown him silence could collapse a kingdom. He left, slower than he came. He looked back once, hoping for grace. But I'd already given him that. By the time he drove off, I wasn't angry anymore. I was something deeper, unreachable. Her first mistake was thinking people root for perfection. They don't. They root for truth. And when the truth finally caught up with her, she looked polished, but she sounded hollow. An interview went live on a business podcast. She smiled through the questions, rehearsed charm, clean answers, until the host leaned forward and said, "We heard whispers that your original investor, your former husband, pulled out just before the collapse. Want to comment on that?" For the first time, her face twitched. She gave a half smile. It was personal. But truth doesn't care for smiles. The comment section lit up like dry grass. Wait, wasn't he the one who funded her first launch? Didn't he write that pitch deck she showed at the New York summit? Yo, this whole empire feels borrowed. The internet started digging. They found old photos, me beside her at conferences. Old emails. Archived footage where she thanked me before editing me out years later. A Twitter thread with 1.4 million views spelled it out plainly. She didn't build an empire. She used someone else's bricks, then acted like she made the clay. She tried to do damage control. Released a statement. Blamed creative differences and unforeseen transitions. But the world had already seen what she never wanted them to see. The foundation wasn't cracked. It just wasn't hers. I didn't say a word. Didn't comment. Didn't post. Because when the echo chamber turns on its creator, it doesn't roar. It whispers everything they once silenced. The 7th time she called, I picked up. Not because I wanted to hear her voice, but because I needed to hear what guilt sounds like. When the world's no longer clapping for you. Everett, she began, her voice trembling like a violin string stretched too tight. I didn't say anything. Silence, I've learned, makes people say more than truth ever could. I just want to talk, she said. I leaned back in the old chair on the porch, the wood creaking under my weight, the wind brushing across the pines like time whispering through memory. You built this life with me, she said. You can't just erase everything we had. I almost reminded her. I didn't erase anything, you did. You replaced me while I was still in the room. But I stayed quiet. She filled the air with pleas. Brady left. Investors backed out. The board's threatening to dissolve the company. I've tried to hold it together, but... Her voice cracked. You were always the one who made things stable. That's when I finally spoke. You wanted a new chapter. You just didn't realize I was the author of every page you left behind. She paused. You make me sound like a villain, she said. No, I replied. You're not a villain. Just unfinished. That silence again. Only this time, it wasn't mine. It was hers. Heavy. Ashamed. Then she asked it, the question I knew was coming. Did you ever really love me? I closed my eyes. I remembered the weekends I built her website while she slept. The quiet birthdays I spent alone while she networked. The mornings I left hot coffee by her laptop, knowing she'd never notice. I said, I loved the version of you who looked at me like I mattered. But that version hasn't lived here in a long time. She broke then. I could hear it. Tears. Real ones. Not for me, for the empire crumbling behind her. But I didn't hang up out of spite. I hung up because the chapter had closed. And this time, I wasn't the one left on the last page. The seasons changed without permission. Winter melted slowly into spring. But some things, like pain, don't melt. They dissolve quietly over time, like salt in water. I hadn't spoken to her in weeks. Not since that last call where the sobs finally came. Not for me, but for everything she lost. The company, the brand, the image she spent years curating like a storefront window. Shattered. Brady was gone. Rumor had it he moved out of state, rebranded his name, and started working under someone else. Funny. He used to dream of building something under his own. Her startup was dissolved. Her public relations team quit quietly. Too much smoke, not enough spin. And me? I planted tomatoes. Bought a plot of land behind the cabin, built a small greenhouse. Didn't tell anyone. Not because I wanted privacy, but because I wanted nothing that needed defending. I began mornings with black coffee and silence. Evenings with a book and an old jazz record crackling through dust. Somewhere in between, I healed. One day, I found a package at my doorstep. No name, no return address. Just a letter, carefully folded, handwritten. I know I broke something good. I don't expect forgiveness. But if there's a version of us in a different life, I hope he gets to keep you. I read it once. Then I stepped inside, lit the fireplace, and let the flame turn memory to ash. Not out of hatred, but because some endings deserve firelight, not flame wars. Later that week, a young man stopped me in the local bookstore. He said, "Aren't you the guy who helped start Monarch Tech?" I smiled, shook my head. "No, son," I said. "I'm just a man who used to know what that looked like." He walked away, and I stood there, alone but not lonely, not forgotten, just free. My name is Everett Kane, and if you're still watching, sometimes the loudest justice is the life they no longer get to witness.